Good morning. So this session is about sustainability and growth in one session, in one sentence. What? And I was thinking, these two are have been decoupled for so long. And that's because the traditional perception of sustainability has been that it's about compliance, emissions reductions, stay in your lane. Growth is about producing more stuff, selling more stuff. But if you zoom out a little bit and look at the boundaries of what we can do with sustainability, you'll see that they are actually a really good match. If you think about sustainability as not just compliance and emission reduction, but if you think about growth as corporate reputation, your brand value, the consumer loyalty, resilience of your supply chain, then you realize that sustainability sits at the heart of growth. But to tap into that value, we do need to do a couple of things which are foundational work, because very intuitively, sustainability and growth do not speak to each other. I call it the hidden opportunity because we did not recognize it ourselves at Asahi. For a very long time, we were so focused on just reduction of emissions, reduce water, reduce waste, reduce emissions, reduce carbon. And it took us a while to realize that if we want to look at sustainability as a driver of our growth, we have to just first embed it into our core strategy. It cannot be a side conversation. It cannot be on the sidelines. It can't be at the end of a brief. It has to be in the brief. And what we did was we integrated sustainability across all of our functions. What does that mean? If you think about marketing, sustainability is a way how we are adding halo to our brands, how we are connecting with consumers. If you think about finance, we look at EBITDA, but we also look at something called sustainable EBITDA, which factors in the price of carbon. If you think about R&D, the brief for innovation includes sustainability technologies that we need. And once the integration was done, you'll find that the whole senior leadership of our company was talking about sustainability. The CFO was accountable as much as the CSO. And then we thought, this is working great. Let's push it up another notch. And now the bonuses and incentives of our senior leadership is connected to sustainability. So that really moved the needle. So doing all this work prepared us to say, okay, now we are ready to tackle sustainability not as an emission reduction tool, but as a growth tool. But then comes the question, we are ready, are the consumers ready? And there are a lot of reports. This is from the latest Kantar report, which says sustainability can add up to 10% of your brand value. Great, but how? And the question is, if we are saying 10% of the brand value, how are we defining the brand value? And this is something that we have looked at very deeply to say, if we want to tackle sustainability as a growth accelerator, what are the fundamental steps that we have to take before it starts showing that growth on a brand? So getting into the nitty-gritty, the first thing is, you can disregard my entire talk if you haven't done the implementation work. So I'm assuming that you have done the implementation or are doing it. You're looking at renewable energy, you're looking at water, you're looking at waste. Once you're in that journey, you will realize that one by one, all your products are getting a few milestones in their kitty. So a product being manufactured in UK may be produced by 100% renewable energy. A product in Italy is a water saver. And then you start collecting all of these milestones, and then you say, okay, this is my laundry list. Now from this, which brands can talk about these sustainability themes in a meaningful way? So when I say meaningful, I'll talk about it a little bit more. It doesn't mean you just take a brand, you take the water, you slap it a label on top and it'll work, because that's just too superficial. You have to make sure that the sustainability theme is woven into the DNA of the brand. And even better, it should speak to the consumer or the local consumer that you are targeting your brand to. So if a country is struggling with water scarcity, and I take my brand and start talking about renewable energy, it's not going to cut it. But if you are looking at UK, where moderation is something that everybody cares about, and then you have a brand like Peroni, which is talking about 0.0, then it just rides the wave and just goes through it seamlessly. And this is one of our brands that has actually become a flagship of moderation and responsible drinking. Another thing that I speak about a lot is I think it's also the fault of us in the sustainability world. 99% of us think sustainability is about environment and carbon and emissions. But there is an equally important and valuable side, which is the social side of sustainability. And mapping your brands to the social side can have as much impact as the environmental side. And I know it's a little bit trickier because gender equity in Italy means something different than gender equity in India. But if you take a very structured, data-driven approach, it is possible. And we tried it with another brand of ours called Nika. And we removed all the labels from the product, literally and figuratively. So literally, there are no labels, reduces the emissions and the packaging impact. But figuratively, the idea was this brand is for everybody, regardless of gender or race or social status. And the campaign was so well done, it actually won at the Cannes Lions last year. So it's even doable, not just with the environmental side, it's doable even with the social side. And finally, I was talking about this organic, seamless integration of brands and sustainability for growth. This is another example, where the logo itself of our brand is an endangered species in Poland, the bison. So we partnered with WWF. We invested in a Zuber fund, which looks at the preservation of the species, protecting the lands. We engaged with consumers, and for the last 7 years, it's the leading local brand in the market. So it's absolutely doable. The question is, to be able to get here, are we following all the fundamental steps instead of just diving headfirst? Another really good one. Sustainability can be very heavy and dreary and numbers-driven and percentages. But if we want to talk to our consumers on sustainability and drive growth through sustainability, it has to be reflected in the spirit of the product. So when you're drinking a bottle of beer, you want to have a good conversation, a good time with your friends and family, and not worry about the 62% footprint from the packaging. And that's the campaign that we ran in Australia, where we said, you enjoy the product, we'll do the work. And that was the intent, not passing the buck to the consumer, but taking the responsibility of the sustainability work that has to be done at a corporate level. So these are just some of the examples where when we put sustainability on top of the brand as a halo, it actually led to growth in brand reputation, brand value, and even financial numbers in terms of revenue and sales. While we are at it, let's also talk about what not to do. Everything that I'm speaking about is based in science, in data, in credibility. I'm assuming that that's something that we are all doing at a basic level, at a hygiene level for sustainability. But it has to be meaningfully communicated if you want to see the growth in the numbers. I'm not from the UK. I'm actually based out of Amsterdam. I was walking down a grocery store here, and there was a whole aisle of eco, green, bio, pigs can fly. And I was like, I don't even know what half of these things mean. And that's the point. If you really want it to stick, if you really want it to be a driver of growth, it has to be simple, credible, and meaningful. And we've talked about the growth from the brand side. I also want to talk about the growth from the innovation side. So if you look at, I spoke about integration of sustainability into your functions earlier. And when we were doing that, we of course integrated it into our R&D division as well. And it was not a side brief, it was the core of the brief, to look at technologies and solutions that can help reduce our emissions and drive growth. And I think the outcomes were, if not positive, inspirational even. So we wanted to reduce emissions, obviously. And we came up with a vending machine that captures carbon. So of course, reducing emissions, great. But then we looked at the byproduct that was coming out from the vending machine. And we realized it actually is very, very good for helping restore coral reefs. And we right now have 30 projects running on different areas within Japan, fostering the coral reef reproduction using the byproduct of this carbon capture vending machine. That was not in the brief. Another thing we found out was the waste that is collected at the bottom of the vending machine, the carbonate. It's a great construction material, not in the brief, but it's a completely new revenue stream for us. It's a completely new product. And it can be used for construction, it can be used for making roads. By the way, I don't know if you can see, this is the facility where the carbon capture vending machine was devised, our R&D facility. And the roads made in this facility are from the waste of the carbon capture vending machine. And I thought that was very cool. Another idea we had is, because we have a lot of breweries, we have a lot of factories, there's a lot of biomass waste that we get. And we took all of that waste and we said, okay, let's see what we can make out of this. And we made a tumbler, a glass, and we called it the tumbler of the forest. And it resonated so well with the communities that we were saying and selling this to, that we created a whole series of products from our biomass waste. And not only that, we created a whole new Asahi entity called Asahi US, which is totally focused on this product portfolio. Completely different from the food and beverage that Asahi does. So you can see, for us, it's not something that we debate a lot. It's something that is core to how we talk about sustainability within our organization. And it wasn't easy. It took us about 6 years to get here. We went through every single step to be able to get here. And then finally, I was talking to David backstage a little bit about all-time low consumer trust on brands, on sustainability. And I think the only thing I want to say about greenwashing is don't do it. It's just bad. Just start from a place of science and credibility and good evidence and data. And then comes the question of how do you use all that and make it into a driver of growth for your own organization. I know there's a lot of regulations coming out. There's a lot of credibility checks happening. And there was also this mantra, move fast, break things. That's great, but for me, if you're moving fast, breaking things, please make sure that you're replacing it with something better. Otherwise, we are ending up in a broken world. And I love these regulations. I love the check. I love the questions and the challenges we're being asked by the consumers to make sure everything we are saying is credible. And these regulations are heavy, and I get it, but it's like broccoli. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not good for you. So I think it's something that we all need, creates a level playing field, makes sure that we are all credible. And I get it. Everything that I spoke about in a couple of slides is a lot of work. It's going to add extra lag time to when your campaigns go out in the market. It's going to add a lot of extra R&D effort before some of these results can be seen. It's a lot of effort making sure that every single function within your organization is on board with sustainability and that you're connecting bonuses with sustainability target. But I think that's the challenge we have. And I can say that all of us are sustainability practitioners. We've been in this field for a while because we are a little bit disillusioned optimists, and we know that we can do this. Because if you look back 20, 30 years, we started with the challenge of denial. Then we started with the challenge of resistance against 1.5. And now the floodgates have been broken. I'm looking at all of you around the room. We've all now looked at or heard about everything around acceleration of action and implementation. So I know it's tough. It's almost asking to play the unplayable piano, but we've done it before. And I know we can do it. And it's not on somebody else to do it. If we are the sustainability guardians, then it's our job to start talking about sustainability in a different way, to change the mindsets to not just think of sustainability as compliance or emission reduction, but something that can build brands, something that can drive innovation, something that can grow companies in additional revenue streams, in additional markets, in additional sectors. I think I've covered it all, but I'll just leave you with something that I heard yesterday was sustainability is the cost of growth. I don't think so. I think sustainability can be the next driver of growth. And I'll leave that with you. Thank you very much.